Good evening. This is Working in Saudi 101 for Dummies, episode 24, in the Free Richard H. campaign. Now, today's discussion will be about Brexit and working in Saudi Arabia. So, first of all, how does Brexit affect Saudi Arabia and expats working there? Well, what made me think about making this video was I got an email contact from a Mike in Stafford who has a son-in-law working in Saudi Arabia, and it seems that he was in contact with his MP, Stafford or somewhere in Staffordshire, about questioning about what were his son-in-law's rights in Saudi if anything came to a problem. So thank you very much, Mike, for that. Hopefully you mentioned Richard when you contacted your MP. But with Brexit, and I'm not taking a position on Brexit, well, I may have my own position, but I'm not going to state it. Britain is in a situation where it has to look very, almost desperately, for new trade partners, especially as it doesn't seem there will be a trade deal. Now, what does this mean? Well, Saudi is already a major country for British, primarily arms exports, but also for every range of consumer goods. So what does this mean? This means that Britain will, to use a Chinese expression, have to kowtow even more to the Saudis than they do at present, because the last thing they want to do is upset any contractual relations. They'll actually want to expand them. We know what the situation is when Liam Fox was speaking so many years ago about Brexit and how he was going to get a deal here, there, and everywhere, a deal with Canada, a deal with Australia. The Europeans would come rushing for a deal with Donald Trump, etc., etc. But most of that's not looking good. It's looking very difficult. So any British government is going to want to protect employment for their workers, especially now during this quarantine period. So what does it mean? It's going to mean the British government will even take less interest in any of their nationals that are in trouble in Saudi Arabia. They already do almost nothing in any event. And if you look at any of my earlier videos, to which we've had coming up close now to 500 views, you'll see that they don't do anything unless it's important. So Richard may be trying to find freedom, but it's not easy. Now, so if you're thinking about going to Saudi, please realize that the chances of you get anything to do with help, should you have any sort of issue, unless you work, again, with a large British multinational, especially in the arms industry, the chances of you getting any help are extremely low. So this is another worry and concern. It's not as if Britain didn't need Saudi as much as it did before. Britain needs Saudi much more than it did before. And so all sorts of arrangements, perhaps to the liking of the Saudis and less to the liking of the British, will happen in case of the fact that it seems no deal will occur in Brexit. Now again, I'm going to come back to my bugbear, which is the lack of the help by the FCO. We may not know a lot about the NHS, but we know that basically you cut your hand, you go to A&E, it gets fixed. You get in an accident, bad accident, you'll be fixed up. Okay, things that take a longer amount of time, you want to see a specialist. We know the fact with an aging population, it takes a long, long time, meaning months and months, to see a specialist in many areas, maybe with your hip, with your head, or anything else. But we know the NHS do that. We know that Britain has teachers, and whether they're in a union or not, and the fact that the place has almost no discipline for teachers in schools, and the burnout rate is pretty high, and the level of education perhaps is very questionable in government schools, we at least know what a teacher does. But do we really know what the FCO does with that £1 billion a year? And as I said earlier to people, You know, I explained my view and people came back to me, and their requirement is, can I get a passport at the embassy? Nope. Can I get this kind of assistance? Nope. Will they do this for me? Nope. So what actually do? They can talk about highfalutin dinners and trade meetings and investing for influence, but really the FCO needs to be accountable. This is not the 19th century noblesse oblige. They're a government department with a lot of money, and now they're going to be controlling the development budget. All I'm saying to you is, if you take any interest, self-interest, you might inquire the next time you speak to a politician coming round, and there may be an election sooner than people think in the UK, that you want to find out what these people actually do. What does this department do? Because it's definitely not helping British people overseas, in the main. Back to the Richard H. campaign. Yes, Richard can now leave Saudi, but at the moment, as I said earlier, he's involved with getting a lawyer, which he now has, and looking at areas where he can look for compensation. And most of that compensation he would hope to come from the Ministry of the Interior. And that may take time. His lawyer recently said he wants him to spend more time there. Richard can't wait to get out. Also, of course, his employer has duty bound to pay him, to pay for his flight out, but there may be compensation there, as the employer had a duty of care to Richard when he was in this trouble, and the employer didn't pitch up. The third aspect is, later Richard will be making a complaint to the Ombudsman about the treatment by the FCO, but as I said, a British expat who was in jail, much worse situation than Richard, bad treatment. He came out with only £8,000 when there was an independent ombudsman. So you can't be looking for much cash there. So this is where we are with Richard. But I would say to you, if you've got any loved ones thinking about going to Saudi, of course with the COVID issue there isn't a movement of people, but when people are desperate for jobs, they may look at Saudi. All I would say is consider looking at other Gulf countries if you can't find another country, if you feel you've got to work abroad, tax-free. There are a few other Arab countries that may be hiring, but anybody who reads the paper sees this is not a good time for most of the formerly oil-rich Arab countries in the Arab Khalij. So if you are considering going, once this is over, please make an audit, a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of what you want when you go. At the time, everything will seem an opportunity, extra cash in a job. But don't doubt that employers in Saudi will not know that people who want to go there now perhaps are in a less of a negotiating position. So that's all I'd like to say to you. This is episode 24 of Working in Saudi 101 for Dummies. I hope that there's only one other video that will come your way, and that is when Richard is out of Saudi airspace. But I'm in contact with him, and he's just waiting to decide when he goes from Saudi. So thank you very, very much for listening. Thank you for all your support. And do, in your own self-interest, try to find out what the FCO do. You can look at my earlier videos. All right, thank you and good night. This is from Mr. M in the Free Richard H campaign. Thank you very much. Good night.